What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy. Today I want to talk about the Purrely deck. So this is a new deck that's coming out. Well, it's not really new, but we're getting some new support in the form of Purrely Lily, as well as Purrely Sleepy Memory, which are coming out in Cyberstorm Access in about 2 weeks' time. And that all of a sudden puts the deck on tier 1 status, especially if we get a ban list that'll actually hit some of the current good decks like Cash Tier Up, which allows them to strive a little bit more. So essentially how this deck works is it revolves around two monsters, the Purrely Lily as well as the Purrely, which are basically little monsters that can rank up into ginormous XYZ monsters. They also have 4 quick play spell cards that allow them to special summon either Purrely or Purrely Lily from your deck by discarding a card in your hand as a part of a card effect. So those cards are Purrely Happy Memory, Purrely Pretty Memory, Purrely Sleepy Memory, and Purrely Delicious Memory. So all of those allow you to discard a card. And in the OCG, this has already been out for about a format or two, and we've seen them been kind of creative, playing different cards that they could discard and make use of, because it's kind of annoying having to take a neg1 every time that you activate one of these cards. Even though Purrely Lily or Purrely will allow you to add another card to replenish that, you would rather discard a card that allows you to either draw a card or replace that card that was discarded, so you're just going pluses instead of going even or negative on that trade. So the first couple of cards that come to mind, I guess, are the Dark World cards. We have Snow on Light of Dark World. When this card is discarded by a card effect, you can add any Dark World card from your deck to the hand, including itself. So what that means is anytime that you're able to discard Snow for the effect of one of these quick play spell cards, you're able to add another copy of Snow, which allows you to chain 3 copies of Snow, so you effectively have 3 discard fodders, plus you get to search off the last Snow. You can search either a Brow to draw and replenish that advantage, or potentially you could even search a Grapha if you're leaning towards Disruption. If your opponent's playing like some kind of Floodgate spell, for example, if your opponent plays like Anti-Spell or something and you happen to have Grapha, this might be a good option. Or you could even add it to your hand as potential disruption on their turn by discarding for the effect of a quick play spell card during their turn. And it's really nice because of the fact that Snow is effectively 4 cards rolled into one, because it searches another copy of itself, which searches another copy of itself, which searches a copy of Brow. So you can use it up to 4 times, and it's very nice. Obviously, with these cards that are discarded and get the effect to add, you typically want to use it in draw steps so you can play around Drone Lockbird, because of the fact that Drone Lockbird is going to be super popular because Super Heavy Samurai are running around. And Drone Lockbird cannot actually be used during the draw phase. So when you use a quick play Purrely spell card, especially on the Purrely discard a Snow during your draw step, you're able to use the effect of Snow as well as the effect of Purrely or Purrely Lily, both in the draw step, so they cannot Drone Lockbird you, and then in the main phase you can continue playing before you play in a draw. And the nice thing is, obviously, after searching in your draw phase, you could activate another copy of a quick play spell card still in your draw phase, and then continue to use the effect of Purrely, so you're completely playing around Drone Lockbird. So that's the nice thing about the Dark World cards. The only bad thing is they're kind of bricks on their own. They don't really do anything. If you have a hand without quick play spell cards and you're looking at a Snow and a Brow, multiples of these, they kind of start to have diminishing value. They don't really do anything for you. You can't really do much. You can summon them and then link up, but that's about the extent of any value that you're going to get. Another popular card that was seeing play in the OCG was Volcanic Shell. This is very similar to Snow, so you would discard this, use the effect, pay 500, add another copy of Shell, discard it again, pay 500, add another copy of Volcanic Shell. And for this card, unfortunately, the drawback is that you have to use it in your main phase, which I really don't like because you're susceptible to the effect of Drone Lockbird, which locks you out of the game. And the other thing is the fact that it's not a trigger effect, is an ignition effect. So if you're using this effect to discard, you use the effect of Purrely, you add a card to your hand, then they Drone Lockbird, you can't even use the effect of Volcanic Shell, so you're effectively going -1 on that trade. Whereas with something like Snow, not only can you use it in the draw step, but you can also use it as a trigger effect on the same chain as Purrely, so even if they did have Drone Lockbird and you were outside of your draw step, you would still be able to get 2 cards before they Drone Lockbird you. Volcanic Shell, the other thing is you have to pay 500. This is kind of annoying. Everyone knows the new time rules in TCG are really annoying, so if you're in time and you have to pay 500 multiple times, that could really come back to bite you. So I don't really see a good argument to play this card. I'm not really sure. There might be some other way to intersperse some more Volcanic cards, possibly in the deck, and then that might require Shell, especially with the new support that's coming out in the OCG, but it's not really relevant to us because we're not going to get that for a while. So I don't really see a good argument to play Volcanic Shell, unless you, of course, like play ulti rares in your deck and bling it out, then maybe there's an argument for that. Similar to Snow, we're going to move on to the Shaddol card. So there's Shaddol Beast, and I've seen players play another copy of Shaddol Squamata, so effectively you're playing 2 copies of Beast, more or less. And this is very similar to Snow, given that you can use it in your draw step to play around Drone Lockbird to draw a card. It's a lot like Brow as well. I would say that Brow might be a little bit better, because Beast you can't really normal summon, you can't really do anything with your plays, and then Brow's not once per turn either, so being able to draw a card effectively does more or less the same thing. However, the nice thing about Shaddol cards is that you can play the rest of the Shaddol fusion spells as an engine. You're able to play this powerful spell card in the form of Shaddol Fusion, which allows you to potentially side it going second and then summon a Shaddol construct out to the table to out any annoying monsters, because of the fact that construct can destroy any special summon monster at the beginning of the damage step with her own ability. And then when you link her off, you get to add back a copy of Shaddol Fusion. So we're going potentially +3, you know, off this interaction. If you destroy a monster, maybe further pluses, because number one, we're going to be able to dump a Shaddol Beast, draw a card. You could even side Shaddol Dragon, pop a spell or trap card, and then when you link off Shaddol Construct, you get to add back the Shaddol Future from your graveyard back to your hand as a potential discard for future purely quick play spell cards. So this is another option that you could do. It's a little worse than the TCG. We don't have Sky Striker Azalea, or at least it's not been spoiled in Cyberstorm Access yet. That's a really nice generic link to that you can make using Darks and Lights. So until we get that card, it's a little bit worse to link off your construct. You're going to be going towards something like an IP or a Nightmare if you happen to play those in your extra deck. But it's just nice. You have that cute interaction with a potential Shaddol Fusion being a potential blowout card in your deck that also outs Floodgates in the form of Shaddol Beast. You do have to play a couple of bricks, but it's nice that it has some built-in intrinsic value, being able to use them with your quick play spell cards to pop cards, being able to draw cards at any point in the game. The other popular card that the OCG has been playing is the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation Crystal Beast package. So this is a trap card that when it's in your graveyard, you can banish it, and then you can add 1 Crystal Beast monster and 1 field spell from your deck to your hand. And typically, players have been playing Cobalt Eagle because this card has the effect, the ignition effect, where once per turn while it's on the field, you can target 1 Crystal Beast card you control, place it on top of the deck. So if you happen to draw this as a brick, you can normal summon it. The deck doesn't really care about normal summons because you're special summoning all of your Purrelys off the quick play spells. So you can normal summon a Cobalt Eagle, use the effect, spin it back to your top of your deck, and then all of a sudden your Rainbow Bridge is live, so you're still able to banish it, because it does have to add a Crystal Beast monster as well as a field spell. So if you don't have Cobalt Eagle in your deck, then it's effectively dead, but it's nice that Cobalt Eagle has that recycling ability to use with Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. And the other thing that you would typically add is, of course, the Stray Purrely Street, which is the built-in field spell card in the deck that prevents your Purrely monsters from being targeted the turn that they're special summoned, and also allows you to special summon a Purrely level 1 monster from your deck or graveyard when a Purrely XYZ monster you control leaves the field because of its opponent's card. So either by battle or by card effect. So it's a built-in way to play around Impermanence, Veiler, which are pretty annoying for the deck. So when you're able to add that, you're also able to play around Drone Lockbird because it's a trap card, so you can instantly banish it from your graveyard during the draw phase after you discard it. And then you chain it, obviously, to the effect of the monster you summon to add the card. So it's kind of nice in that aspect. And then, of course, you also do get 2+. It's a +1, so you get like the Cobalt Eagle to discard and further your plays as well. The other thing that people are playing is METALFOES Fusion. This is just something that you can generically discard, and then from the graveyard you can shuffle it back. It's a little worse. I would probably say it's akin to Volcanic Shell, because of the fact that you just shuffle it back from the graveyard is an ignition effect, so you're not going to be playing around Drone Lockbird. You're not going to be able to use this until your main phase, and it's just a little bit worse in that aspect. But again, like, it's another spell card, so sometimes that does come up. I know it comes up with Sky Striker Azalea, where if you have 3 spells in your graveyard, she doesn't destroy herself when she attacks something, when she pops something on summon, so it's kind of nice that it's a spell card. But I don't really see an argument to play this over the other cards that activate in the draw step to play around Drone Lockbird. It's just another option to have. Oh, and the other thing I actually forgot to mention with the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation is that you can actually add a Ritual Sanctuary. So this is a cute little card that has a couple of effects. So the first effect is a Ritual Spell effect that's not really relevant to our deck, but the one that we care about is the Ignition effect. It says you can shuffle any number of spells from your graveyard into the deck, then target 1 Light Fairy monster in your graveyard who level equals the number of cards you shuffled into your deck. Special summon it. So this is a nice little grind card because you're able to shuffle back any number of your quick play spells, and then you're also able to special back a Purrely that's in your graveyard. Use the effect to start playing again. So you kind of get the grind game going. It's a nice little target that you can add off of Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. I know there are probably some other field spell cards that you could add too. Things like Necro Valley even to lock out potential graveyard decks. But it's just a nice little toolbox that you can add any field spell cards from your deck to your hand. So if there are any ones that can kind of adapt to the meta, then you can probably put that into your deck alongside the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. Other card that I thought was kind of cool was actually the Shufflers. So we kind of had a glimpse of that when I misclicked. But Medora and Keldo, these are really nice because you can use them as disruption against your opponent. If your opponent's playing something like Tearlaments, if they're still popular, or like any graveyard-based deck, like Branded, Keldo, and Medora really shine there. There's not really an argument to play Kelbeck and Agito, in my opinion, unless you're playing a deck with like a lot of SHADDOLL cards and like a lot of stuff that you want to mill, then maybe you could play those as well. Maybe if you're playing like Neteria Engine, if someone's crazy enough to do that, or if someone's playing like Runix in that deck, then they just want to get names to the graveyard, you could make an argument to do that. But I would rather play the Shufflers because they have some value the minute that they're put into the graveyard and you can use them right away. The other card that I thought was kind of cool was actually Tearlaments. This is kind of copium, but when they're sent to the graveyard as a card effect, you can actually use the effect to shuffle it back a Purrely Lily. You do have to use the onboard Purrely, so it's a little worse. So it really, like, your hand has to be very good with multiple quick play spell cards. But I just thought I would mention it because this could be potentially something that you could experiment with. Because Havness plus Purrely Lily allows you to make a Mud Dragon of a swamp, and then from there you can put your Mud Dragon to either light or dark attributes, so for the rest of the turn, your Purrely monsters cannot be targeted by card effects, so things like Impermanent Veiler. So if those are really popular in the metagame, then maybe Tearlaments are like a potential nice option because you're able to make those plays. And then if you're also playing other cards like Dark Worlds with Tearlaments, then you could make Grapha as well, so that's kind of troll. I mean, it seems kind of win more, but it's just like something I thought I would mention because it's just like it has some sort of synergy with the deck, if even. Another card that I thought was really cool is a secret attack would be Archfiend Heiress. So this is something that you could potentially side deck. And what this card does is when it's sent to the graveyard as a card effect or being destroyed by battle, you add one Archfiend card from your deck to your hand except Archfiend Heiress. So you can add any Archfiend card, any card that has Archfiend in its name. And there are actually some surprisingly very good targets. So first and foremost, Archfiend Eccentric. This is a Pendulum card. When it's in your Pendulum skill, you can target another spell or trap on the field, destroy it, and it this card, so it's like an MST. When it's summoned as a monster on the field, you can tribute this card, then target one monster on the field, destroy it. So it's a nice little out to things like Vanity's Fiend. Obviously, you're not going to be able to use it if you don't hard draw it against Vanity's Fiend that's already on the table, but I'm just saying that it's a nice little option to have. It's a generic removal. You don't really use your normal summon this deck again, so you can normal summon this, pop any card. You can use it to pop Floodgates as well. So anything that you can't really get rid of, it's nice that you can discard an Archfiend Heiress off of one of the quick play spell cards, and then you're able to add Archfiend Eccentric. And then the other Archfiend card that I really like is Seamew Archfiends. This is a trap card that's a pseudo Floodgate, and the way it works is sort of like there can be only one, except it's for monster card types. So what this card does is this turn, neither player can special summon monsters with the same card types, Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link, that they already control. And it's a continuous blanket effect. And what it means is that if your opponent has a Link monster and you activate this, they cannot Link for the rest of the turn until they get rid of that Link monster on the table. So this might be useful in the mirror match. You could wait until they summon like a Purrely XYZ, flip this, then they're locked and they cannot make X Purrely Noir for the rest of the turn unless they link off that existing XYZ and then somehow make a X Purrely Noir. So it's kind of awkward for them. Against Super Heavy Samurai, it might be a good way to flip in response to the Stardust Accelerator Dragon, so then they cannot make Baron. So they have to get rid of that Stardust Accel Dragon by linking it off or making a suboptimal play before they're able to resume their Synchro play. So it's a very nice option. The fact that it's searchable off of Archfiend Heiress, maybe you could play 2 or 3 copies of Heiress to discard, and then going first, you can search a Floodgate, set it, and then your opponent can't really play. I was looking at some of the other Archfiend cards, and there's some niche ones, but this one kind of caught my eye as well. Archfiend Staff of Despair. It's kind of bad. You guys are think this is going to be scrubby, but you never know. The meta might develop to a point where this is needed, because what this card does is it's an equipped card, spell card, equipped to a monster you control. During your main phase, you can make all monsters your opponent currently controls lose attack equal to the half the equipped monster's attack until the end of the turn. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard while equipped to the monster, you can pay 1k life points, return this card to your hand. It's a hard once per turn. So you can obviously make your monsters very big in this deck with the boost effects of your Purrely Happy Memories, your Purrely Delicious Memories being able to boost 300 for each copy that's attached. And you can get some very, very big monsters, big chunky monsters. So if there are ever any monsters like Dragoon, for example, or Adagnister maybe that you can't really get rid of, you could maybe make an argument to side this card. It's searchable off ARCHFIEND Eris, and then you equip it to your big monster, and then it just makes all monsters your opponent controls lose their attack equal to half of your equipped monster's attack. So if your monster is really big, it makes them lose like 2k plus attack, and then you could potentially go for game by attacking for big damage. If there's just like a big monster that you can't get rid of in this deck, and you require like the extra attack boost, then this is a potential option. Once it's sent to the graveyard, you can add it back to your hand, and then use it as another discard fodder for a quick play spell card. So I just thought that was kind of cool. The ARCHFIEND package, I haven't seen any players really talk about this yet. It's just something that I've been kind of had at the back of my head, so I thought that was kind of cool, potentially something that you could experiment with based on what the metagame is. So that's about all I had. If you guys have any other things that I missed, if you guys have any other cards that you think would be really cool with this, that you could discard to get some beneficial interactions with the deck, definitely let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Definitely subscribe, rate, and comment if you haven't already. Bye-bye.